What's going on, beautiful people on the internet? I hope this video finds you well. So, last week, very exciting week when it comes to cameras. Just want to talk about it for a little bit. Now, just to get it out the way, I have no plans on switching, but I can just pay homage to Canon and Nikon right now. Now, listen, okay, Canon C50, Nikon Red ZR, and Fuji came out with another camera, a box camera. Fuji Eterna 550. Yeah, I don't care about that. No disrespect to Fuji, but just not something I'm looking for. It's a great looking camera. I love the film looks, the film simulations that they have. But again, just not something I'm looking for. Yeah, anyway, let's move on. In this video, I'm not going to be talking about specs and things like that. At this point, if you're looking at this video, hopefully it's just for entertainment purposes, but you should have known the specs by now. I just want to pay homage to Canon and Nikon real quick, and then we'll talk about why I'm just not going to switch. First off, let's talk about Canon, the C50. That's a great camera. Really great camera. Is it an FX3 killer? Yeah, I believe it is. I think it's a superior camera than the FX3 in a lot of different ways. Now, it stole the FX3 style, which, okay, listen, they did it better, but they've had 5 years to make it better. Now, that is kind of part of the reason why I'm like, yeah, I'm not switching, because it's essentially a better FX3. And for me, I am beyond that. Now, when I say beyond that, I mean I have the FX3 right now. Had it for many years. But I am looking for something, an upgrade beyond an FX3. I'm looking for the next level. So, the C50 was never going to be the camera that was going to make me switch. Again, we'll get into why I didn't switch and what would have made me switch, or if I was going to switch, why, when. But anyways, yeah, great camera. Open gate, internal RAW, amazing. It's a great camera. Shout out to Canon. All of you Canon users, you have to be excited, because now I think this is kind of like the icing on the cake a little bit, because now you have a price point, a really great price point in every category, especially for the cinema lineup. I think the C50 really rounded out their entry-level cinema lineup. It gave you great stepping stones, unlike Sony. Now, you know what? No, I can say that, because, like, besides the FX3, right, and then the FX6, two great stepping stones. Great stepping stones. But beyond that, for newer technology, newer cameras, there's a huge gap, in my opinion. I'm not paying the type of money you would have to pay for a Burano. That is ridiculous, okay? That is like, okay, that's a Hollywood level set type of money, in my opinion. Paying $20,000 for just a body is crazy for just YouTube alone. Now, unless you have like this big, huge budget and this big production, okay, that makes sense. Or you're doing other stuff outside of YouTube. So, I think it's a great time to be a Canon user, because, again, there's a really nice stepping stone to get to those higher, more expensive cameras. I mean, you have the C400, the C70, C80, now the C50. I mean, even if you go above the C400, the C500 is still a reasonably priced camera. And then obviously you can keep going from there. I think, at least. I don't know. But anyways, great time to be a Canon user. I'll just say that. But the thing about the C50, I think, made me realize something. I have all my eggs in one basket. Now, I know that's easier said than done, trying to invest in other glass outside of what you currently have. But being that I already own and invested in Sony lenses, I think the C50 has made me realize I want to start to invest slowly into the RF lenses, because there's going to be a camera, and I'm still debating on that C400. I need a fourth camera. I have three Sony cameras, FX3, A7S3, A7 IV, that I use for podcasting. I'm looking for a fourth camera, and if I buy a different brand, it's not going to be to bring into my workflow with my podcast gear. It will be something that I'm doing for a different channel, my personal podcast, that we're going around in Sonoma County, wine country, and we interview people that own wineries, and we do restaurants, owners, and chefs, and things like that. That C400 would be for that. Now, ideally, I would love to have a newer Sony camera, but as of right now, nothing is on the horizon. Hopefully it is, but it's not right now. We don't have any idea of what anything could possibly be on the horizon. So, man, again, I just want to pay homage to Canon. Hopefully they are going to be able to push Sony into not rushing, but putting something out. Now let's talk about Nikon. In my opinion, Nikon was the most intriguing. I think Nikon kind of stole the show last week with that Nikon Red collaboration, the ZR. I think that is a fantastic camera. Now, it has a lot of limitations, and it doesn't do some things, but for the price, I would not expect it. With that Nikon ZR, I think everyone should be excited for the future. Now, we all know Nikon acquired Red. I think this is the first time we are seeing the future and the direction that Nikon is going to be going when it comes to, I think this is just my thought process and how I'm interpreting what happened with the Nikon ZR. I think they're trying to bridge the gap between the legitimate Red cameras, kind of like how Sony and Canon has a bridge. They've bridged the gap between their more expensive cinema line and their hybrid cameras. Now, there's a middle in between their hybrid cameras and their more expensive cinema cameras. I think this is just the beginning for Nikon when it comes to trying to start to bridge that gap between their hybrid cameras and their full-on cinema cameras. And they have the right brand to do it. I mean, the Red technology is great. The image quality from the Red cameras, the Red RAW, is amazing. They have a legitimate chance of like just taking over the middle ground of the cinema lineup. They have the huge opportunity, in my opinion. And they are the most exciting. That $2,200 camera is the most exciting camera that came out last week. Again, because of the price and the technology. Fantastic. I am excited to see what Nikon does in the future. And I think they are a legitimate real player in the cinema game now. Again, they acquired Red, so the Red has always been a legitimate player and a legitimate force in the cinema camera industry. So anyways, why did I not switch? But before I get into that, let me just say this. I'm probably going to end up buying that Nikon camera, but it won't be before I invest heavily into the next cinema camera that I'm going to decide on. And as of right now, what I'm going to right now, my thought process is potentially buying a C400, not a C80, or the upgraded version of an FX6, or whatever Sony offers next that's less than $20,000 or less than $16,000. Hopefully, whatever they come out with next that's right around the $10,000 to $12,000 range, I want to buy that camera. I will heavily judge whatever Sony comes out with next to the C400. So that's my thought process of why I'm not switching yet. I mean, it goes a little deeper than that. But that's my early stages of why I'm not wanting to switch. I'm wanting to see what Sony is going to come out with. But I don't want to invest in any Nikon, even though I don't have to really invest much into Nikon because there are adapters that allow you to use E-mount glass and still have autofocus. So it's very intriguing, but I don't want to buy that camera until I know for certain which legitimate cinema camera that has internal NDs and is considered a real cinema camera that I'm going to buy. But just know at some point I will buy a Nikon, that Nikon ZR, just to play around with. Kind of similar to what I do with my Blackmagic full frame camera. It's really just a camera that I like to play around with and shoot with outside of YouTube. But anyways, now let's talk about switching and why I'm not going to do it. If anything, if I was ever going to switch, it would have been for the C400 or the C80. The fact that I did not switch then, I just C50 was not going to do it for me. I'm looking for a legitimate cinema camera. Now, don't get me wrong, FX3 is great. Do I consider it a legitimate cinema camera? No. Do I consider the C50 a legitimate cinema camera? No. I feel like they're teetering right there on the edge of, yes, it is a cinema camera. No, it's just technically a hybrid camera. That's how I feel about the FX3, even though I bought one and I love it. I'm looking for a legitimate cinema camera. But again, besides that point, the financial burden of switching, that's the reality that most of us live in right now. Listen, it's just a burden to try to switch. If you've heavily invested into one manufacturer like Sony or Canon or Nikon or Fuji or Panasonic, if you have a lot of their glass, it's hard to switch. Now the bodies come and go, but the real investment is the lenses. And I've heavily invested in Sony. So I would have to sell things at a loss. And that's what really holds me back. But to me, it's a lesson learned because, like, going forward, I'm not going to limit myself with lens options. I want to start to invest in potentially Nikon and Canon. Now, for me, I'm not going to buy new. Not until I decide I'm going to pick up a body. You know what I mean? So, like, I want to invest in used lenses from Nikon. And I mean somewhat newer lenses, like some newer RF glass or some newer Z-mount glass. So, that's the thing for me. Right now, it just doesn't make financial sense to lose money selling all my Sony gear just to maybe buy one or two bodies when I need at least 3 cameras with decent quality lenses and different focal lengths. It just doesn't make financial sense. And one of the pet peeves that annoys me, and I'm going to let you go after this, is these people that come out and talk about how they're switching. Every new camera that comes out, they're telling you to switch. Or not really telling you to switch, but they're suggesting that they're going to switch, which does influence some people. Never influences me, but it does influence people. But people need to understand that a lot of these creators, if they're not getting the camera for free, they have things from these manufacturers like Sony, Canon, Nikon, Lumix. They have things from them like lenses that they get for free. There are things they get from these brands that makes it easy for them to transition and currently keep some of the other lenses that may not fit with the camera that they're switching to. Like if they're switching complete brands, it's easy for them. So it's easy for them to say, and they're kind of out of touch for doing it. It's easy for them to say, oh, I'm switching back to Canon, and here's why. Well, okay, that's easy to say. I love all the reasons you're saying it, but financially, for most of us normal people, that just doesn't make sense. So here's my thing for all of you YouTube people that do reviews and constantly switching. You're out of touch. Just remember that most of us can't do that, okay? We can't go back and forth and switching bodies just because something better comes out. No, most of the time we have to ride with what we have, okay? We have to ride with what we have because we invested heavily into one lens or one manufacturer when it comes to lenses. So, but anyways, I'm gonna diversify my lenses a lot in the near future. Just because, again, you limit yourself. When you can afford it, try to buy some used lenses. You know what I mean? That's what I'm looking at. Okay, I'm gonna go. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.